Guys, welcome back. I hope everyone's doing well today. It's really sunny, it's warm, perfect, awesome weather. Stuff's starting to change outside, the leaves, just all that, right? So, embrace things like that. Embrace change. That's really a good thing. Have you ever encountered someone in life, right? Never met him before, but when you did have an encounter with him, somehow you recognize them like on a soul level? Has that ever happened? I've had that happen a few times in my life where I've met someone for the first time, but somehow I felt like I knew them, you know, somewhere, right? And it's really strange because I have been thinking about this lately because, when they say eyes are the window to the soul, that's so true. Because if you think about it, if you recognize someone that you've never even met on a soul level, right? Duh. Because you're looking at them and you're seeing their soul that you recognize. Okay? Isn't that so interesting? Like, I just never thought this deeply about stuff, like 10 years ago. So, just to like even think of that, it makes so much sense because there's only been a few people I have met in life that was a recognition on a level unseen. Okay. And so cool, so just think about stuff like that, because um I just, I have such a big heart and I see people for such good that they have, right? I can just look at somebody and like I can recognize what their goodness is inside. Okay. I don't know why. And that's why I just have always been such a loving person because, I want the best for people, like bring out those good skills that I see. Okay. And that's why I'm always like encouraging to people that I am around. If I see that stuff in somebody, if I recognize that when I meet you or whatever, I'm gonna, give you, positivity to bring those out, to let you know the skills, right? That maybe you don't even see within yourself, right? So just the eyes are the window to the soul. Okay, that's so true. Because when you really start like getting to know yourself, you're able to because you know yourself, in that well manner, like a connection with, above, then you can also like understand people on a different level, right? Because if you understand yourself fully, and you also have to incorporate all the other things in earth school, right? Life experiences, okay, and all of those hardships um within yourself to understand, right? It's a learning process. Okay. I'm always going through stuff, but it's easier now because I've went through a lot of big things. Okay. And that's the hurdle. But when you go through that, you get to know yourself more. Okay. And then you can recognize other people on another level that they may not recognize themselves. Okay. So I just thought that was so cool. I was just thinking about that, like, man, the people, that I have recognized on that level. And I was just like, wow, that's so neat that I feel that deep connection with people. And these thoughts started coming to me, so yeah, if you're like that, if you're able to, if you've done a lot of work and you're like, connected within yourself and you have a connection and you can see that in people, then give them positive, uplifting words, right? Maybe tell them what you see in them, right? Like what their potential is, because sometimes people need to hear that to have a little bit of motivation and, that little spark to be like, you're right, because everybody, sometimes it just takes inspiration, to like do something or be like, man, you're right. I forgot that about myself, man. Thanks for bringing that up. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. I am pretty strong, or like, I can do this, I just feel like that's so key because I do that to myself all the time. It's like I'm both parts. There's some days I'm like, I'm just so lazy, and this other part's like, no, just do this one thing, just get up or get outside or do this. And so it's a battle in a sense, but the positive always wins, because that is what motivates, and hey, positivity, you can't go wrong. You know what I mean? like for yourself, you always want to be on the upside of yourself. Don't down yourself, right? Because there's been many people in my life, I have told them, like, man, I see such potential in you, or you're so good at this. You have such good skills in this, like, wow, you could really go far. I always tell people that because I know how that is, right? And sometimes you just need that. And that's why I love talking about stuff like this on my channel. I think the eyes are really a window to the soul, because just pay attention, right? Look at people. Look at their eyes, like, I'm just saying, like, sometimes on TV, I've noticed this was like a few years ago. I just thought, oh my gosh, why do people's eyes look black? Like, obviously if somebody has brown eyes or darker brown, it can be difficult to see those different layers within their eyes if you're far away. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, if so on TV, it may come off that way, but just pay attention to people's eyes when they're talking on TV, right? Do you see a soul in there? I know that sounds a little crazy, but if your eyes are the window to your soul, and your soul is you, okay? The body is just a vessel that's holding on to the soul that's really operating you, okay? That's what it is. So it's almost like a caterpillar, right? The worm itself is just withholding the soul in the little butterfly that transforms into the butterfly, right? That's all it is. So, just look at that. I was just like, man, some of the stuff that goes through my brain, I love it. But, I like to share it because, we actually are more than what is told to us, okay? What is educated upon, what is shown in reality, okay? So you really need to, confirmation, okay? You really need to, that's why I like the work on self, because, like, everybody goes through things, and I know I always say this, and I will, okay, until the world has went through their healing. But, like, just working on that stuff, like, there may be something that comes up, whatever. Just deal with it. It may be a few days. You may have to sit on it. You may not know what to do or how to process it, but just go through the feelings and feel whatever it is, right? The hurt, the pain. Go through those deep feelings, okay, that come up, because that's the healing process, And I mean, sometimes things can take years to work through, okay? But you've wasted years doing other things, right? So, like, why not just have that going on as well, because it really, like I always say, it always benefits you, the work you put in that nobody sees, that you just take steps of daily to do things. And that, like, lifts your soul, right? It's almost like when people say, oh, like, someone's pregnant, they have this glow about them. Well, you know why? It's because their soul is birthing another soul inside. Okay, so they're going to be glowing. And that's how it is when you start working through stuff. You just start glowing, because you're releasing stuff and your soul is lighter. It's brighter. And you can see that through what? The eyes. Because the eyes are the window to the soul that you are setting free through the work that you do, It's so profound. And I have such passion for it because I've done that. And I constantly work through stuff, whatever it is, when I feel a lot of energy. Okay. Any empath can understand this. You feel a lot of energy. Okay. And what you can do with that energy is transmute it. Okay. You can work through that energy. It may not even be your own. Okay. But you can work through that and, do something with that. Right? Because what is energy? Well, that's you. That's your life force. That's your creativeness. That's your vitality. Okay? That is your perseverance. All of that. So when you get energy in that way, right, you can do something with it. And that helps people work through things. You know what I mean? Or, so the cool thing is, like, after me just after me just reflecting on, the person mainly, but a few people in life that I've noticed on a soul level, somehow it's like I just knew them. All of these other thoughts came up, and So I had done a meditation this week, and, I was asking my team, like, is there anything I need to know? Right? What is going on, or something I need to read relating to current times? Okay. And like I said, that's why I love the connection I have, because I just opened it up, right? I just do a prayer, is there anything you need me to know? And then, like, here's my Bible, right? I just open it up, and it took me to Timothy chapter 1. Okay? If you just go read that, like, it just blows me away, because it's always related specifically to, like, what I have going on. I don't read the Bible every day, but sometimes I feel like there are specific words that maybe I'm missing in my journey, that I am like, what do you need me to know? And I'll just turn to it. So, and when I read it, I'm like, got me back on path. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of gets you back. And if you read that, it's basically about having true, unwavering faith, grace, pure love, okay? And abiding by spiritual law, okay? So crazy. It almost like gets me emotional just thinking about it. It's talking about how the laws put in place by, society, those are really for the criminals, okay? That, like, in a sense, at one point, or, does still currently, it protects those people. And that's so funny, because I've said in another video, if you are listening to the guidance above, okay, you can call it whatever you want, God, whatever, okay? I know people have different religions and whatever it is, but there's one source. That's all it is. One source. Okay, you can have a spirit team, but the top of that pyramid is the one source, okay? And if you have a connection with that, then it is really interesting. Yeah, so, I've talked about spiritual law on other videos, because if you're following your guidance above, then you're following really the spiritual law, okay? And if you are following that, which I feel like I always have, that's just what I go by, because that's like what I listen to. And so if you listen to that, that's not going to get you in trouble anyway. It's not going to put you in harm's way. It's not going to get you doing all these crazy things that are getting you on the edge of, death or something. It doesn't even do that. So you're not going to be breaking any laws. You're following spiritual laws. And that's what Timothy 1 was about, was basically having unwavering faith in the laws above, okay? It's so crazy. That's why I just, it's humbling, okay? But just having that connection and listening to those laws, okay, which are going to guide you, which you are going to be safe, right? I mean, I've done it my whole life, okay? I don't know. But because you're following that, you're going to be following the laws here in your 3D, okay? But it's basically talking about that, and how when you follow these laws, you are protected, okay? Unlike the laws really here that have been protecting criminals, okay? I'm not saying they do now or everywhere. I'm just saying, think about it. It does protect the criminals, but not spiritual law, okay? And it's just, talking about people that are preaching, doctrine or knowledge to people, and they shouldn't be, right? So it's basically the authority given to, say that you don't have the credentials to teach, that you should no longer teach, right? Because you're misguiding people. And I really, that's why I just say that's your connection. You can go to church for social things or, additional information, but really, I don't go to church because my connection is like so good that I don't need a middleman. It would really just be for me to like do community service or something. I'm not trying to be mean, but I just feel like, yeah. So it's basically the authority given, right? And it's talking about giving mercy, okay, and grace to people that were operating in unbelief, okay? And that's really key, because if somebody doesn't acknowledge something, okay, if you can't recognize it, then you can't understand it to change it. Okay, so if you grow up with one specific belief your whole life, and that's all you know, and you think that is law upon law upon law, okay, if you never are introduced to another law or whatever it is, okay, then you'll never be able to recognize what law you operate with and what other laws are available. You see what I mean? So if you are if you're doing something because it was unbelief, because you really didn't know better or whatever, then that is forgiven grace, right? That's mercy. And that is totally known. But it comes into the point when someone knows right from wrong and operates in that manner, right? Like, that's when I always say, like, do you operate from pure intentions? Because if you do, then you know right from wrong and you do right, you know, or you pick love or you pick God, right? I don't know. But eyes to the soul, you know, it's so true. And like, whenever you go on your healing process, you start seeing stuff differently because your soul is awakened. And if that's the window, then the window becomes a little less foggy, you know, and you see clearly through your window. Your soul is seeing clearly. It's kind of cool, you know. I don't know. I just, you know, I see people's soul on a level because of my healing, and that's why I talk about it. I want other people to experience this too because it's awesome. And, you know, being able to see people on a deeper level allows you to help them on a deeper level, understand stuff on a deeper level, you know? So, I don't know. Just be there for people if you can, like if you're called to that, right? Sometimes God puts you in situations or around people because God knows maybe you can see people on a deeper level and they need that. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people can, like I said, you know, operating in the unbelief, right? So, I don't know. Just interesting. So, thanks guys for listening. I appreciate it. Yeah, read Timothy 1. It was kind of interesting. So, all right.